actually noise bloody organs in it. Boys, showgirls, on your tush. Thank you very much. Right, now, thanks to the generosity of Jeffrey Mosswich, he has some books to give away here today, and I'd like to really give some awards, I think, for last night's effort. Now, we have a first, a second prize, and a third prize. It doesn't really matter, it's all about the effort you put in. I'd like a representative from the Pink Ladies, you know who you are. I know they remember myself, to come up. Second speaking revenue run-off, second place goes to the woman, I don't know who she is. Round glasses on and a moustache, and she stabbed pretty much everybody in the room. I don't know who she is, those who stabbed by her. The next prize goes to the biggest hat, and this goes to a lady who had I could have stood under it and the rest of my family. She's from Nelson, I believe. Dude! Oh, so here we go. Now, of course, we don't like to repeat ourselves, but the next person I'm about to bring up the stage will be all very familiar to you. And although he struggled to get down here, we had ways and means, and in fact, Captain Rutledge made me dress up in a, well, she knows I hate dressing up, anyway. She made me dress up in a mermaid's outfit, swim out in a rock, and Port Taranaki and lure him in. So please help me in luring in Brett Rutledge to the stage.
Ever since I've arrived, basically, and I got the opportunity to meet Ross, something's been bugging me the whole time, because Ross looks like someone. And I've been trying to figure out who Ross looks like, because it was sticking in my head and I needed to figure it out. You know how these things stick in your head. And it's a British actor that he looks like. And it's not Johnny Depp. He looks nothing like Johnny Depp, does he? He sounds quite a bit like Johnny Depp, and he's doing a very good job of it. And it was someone like Kenneth Branagh, but it wasn't Kenneth Branagh. I was trying to think who it was. Step out for a second, Ross. Just... It's Eddie Izzard. He looks just like, after Eddie lost all the weight, obviously, he looks just like Eddie Izzard. And now the mermaid outfit begins to make sense.
That's wonderful. Someone once told my wife she looked like a fat Karen Carpenter. So I'll take skinny Eddie Izzard.
I hate those tricky questions. I hate those tricky. Like a fat Karen Carpenter, that's nice. My wife tries to catch me out like that. She'll say to me, you know, do these blue pants, you know, make you look the size of the house sort of thing, or make you look like the house? And I go, no, of course not. See, that's the right answer. The trick is not to follow it up. That's where I went horribly wrong. But no, of course not. The house isn't blue. I was this close. This close. The last 12 years or so, I've spent working in the corporate market. I basically travel the world and shoot my mouth off. That's my job. I have to keep moving because no country will have me. And I work right throughout New Zealand, Australia, Asia, the United Kingdom, and into Canada and places like that, and I'm constantly moving. I don't travel quite as much as I used to now because I've got the 2 young boys, but I used to fly 20 times a month, every month. It used to be that full on. And one of the first things that happens when you win the World Championship at public speaking is you get people coming up to you and after the praise, which is always nice, and they try to explain, look, I have an entirely self-sufficient ego, but thank you anyway. After that, the next thing you get asked, there are 2 things that you get asked. The first thing is, could you help me? Would you be able to teach me how to do what you do? And the short answer to that is no. That's the answer that I discovered very early on. And you know how a lot of world champions and people who achieve things in life, one of the first things they do is they bring out books. I've never brought one out. And the reason that I've never brought one out until now is because I didn't feel I had enough to say. I didn't feel as if I knew enough about communication to be able to actually comment on it, at least in a book form. Because what I did was I went to the World Championship and competed and won largely on natural talent, if I'm brutally honest. I was just very good at what I did. I had a high natural starting point, higher than most people. And Toastmasters allowed me to hone that and polish it to the point where I could enter the World Championship twice, get knocked out of division in the first year, figure out from that speeches that make people cry don't win. Remember that, because it still applies. Come back the next year and go all the way through and win on the world stage. So to do it in 2 years. I've been in Toastmasters in total, I think, 4 years. So it was a pretty quick journey for me. So I had this natural ability that allowed me to go through and do that. And I didn't necessarily understand exactly how I did it. I kind of did. I knew that I broke a lot of rules. I knew that I did things that other people didn't do, but I didn't necessarily know why. So the next 12 years up until now have been sitting down and figuring out why. What is it that I do? Deconstructing what otherwise might be seen as natural talent and figuring out what other people can learn from that. Because that's the stuff that everyone can do. And that's what I've spent 12 years doing. I think I'm still pretty much the only world champion that works exclusively in the corporate market. Most of the other guys work a lot more with Toastmasters themselves and through those connections. And they have the books and tapes and so on. And they focus on skill and technique and everything else, and they try to teach you what they do. I don't try to teach you what I do because it's my belief that essentially the vast majority of you can't do it. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. It's simply the bell curve. You're talking about a very small percentage of any population that is naturally talented at what they do and has that kind of high skill level. It's not attainable for most people. And it's not realistic to try and attain that. The second question that I always got asked, who do you think is a great communicator? I get asked this all the time. My answer, there are none. Or at least none that are still alive. All the great communicators are dead. Why? Because greatness is unattainable. This is such a massive subject. This is so difficult to do. None of us are that good. All of us make mistakes. All of us screw up. We all have moments of greatness. But on balance, there are plenty of times when we don't do such a good job. And quite frankly, how skilled you are has nothing to do with it. I make plenty of mistakes. Ask my wife, seriously. She'll say, Brett, a great communicator. He's a crap communicator. She'll say it straight away. He's hopeless at home. He's like the mechanic. Fixes everyone else's car, never fixes his own. Never talks, and so on and so forth. Never listens, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Anyway. What does she know? Does she have a world championship? No, she doesn't. All the great communicators are dead, because as soon as you label someone as a great communicator, it's all too easy to tear them down, isn't it? It's all too easy to find holes in the facade. Barack Obama got hailed as this great communicator when he was campaigning for the presidency. What's happened since he's been president? All of a sudden, he doesn't seem to be connecting quite as well anymore. He doesn't seem to be doing quite as much as he promised. It doesn't seem to be working for him quite so much. He's being accused of being aloof, and yet before the election, he was this great man of the people. How did that happen? Did he change? The short answer is no, he didn't. The situation changed. The expectations changed. And whenever that happens, you're judged differently in terms of your communication. So don't think in terms of how do I become a great communicator. What's much more important and much more useful is to think in terms of how can I communicate effectively? How can I have great moments of communication? It's much more realistic, and it's something that everyone can achieve. As soon as you realise one thing, and that is this. I won a world championship in public speaking. I do 200 different voices and characters in total. You heard a few of them this morning. There's a whole bunch more. You want to get John Howard? Former Prime Minister of Australia, Right Honourable John Howard.
My fellow Australians and visitors from across the ditch, can I just say what an absolute privilege and pleasure it has been to have been the Prime Minister of the United States of Australia.
See, I could never understand how a man that short could be Prime Minister for so long. Had a full-length photo of himself in his passport. Family tree was a bonsai. Should have been the Prime Minister. I think he could have learned a huge amount from Julia Gillard. You look at Julia Gillard, the current Australian Prime Minister. Lovely man. Anyway. So I can do things, literally with my voice, that most people in the room wouldn't have any hope of being able to do. Right? Everyone can do a couple of voices, I can do 200, and they can sound like other people. I am arguably the most skilled person in the room when it comes to communication. Let's not have the argument now, let's assume I'm And the only reason that I mention that at all, the only reason, is because when it comes to effective communication, skill and technique don't matter. Skill and technique do not make you an effective communicator. They can't, because technique is only useful if you're highly skilled, and you're not. Nothing personal, it's the bell curve. Statistically, most people in any room will not be skilled enough to use technique effectively, because to use technique effectively, the technique has to be absolutely invisible, doesn't it? You can't see it being used. If I can see that you're employing a technique, good morning, that renders it ineffective immediately. And that's the situation that most people are in. Skill and technique-based approaches to improving communication do not work. They're not designed to make you more effective. They're not designed to make you a better communicator. They're designed to do what? Give you confidence. What's Toastmasters' charter? To make you a more confident speaker. And that's what it does. It doesn't make you better, it makes you feel better about being a bit shy. That's the reality. Now, that's a very, very important first step. That's absolutely vital. And everyone has to go on that first step. But once you have confidence, that doesn't mean you're effective, does it? What's the most common thing we see in the corporate world with CEOs? And that's the level that I tend to deal at. Very confident, articulate speakers who are hopeless. They're boring, they don't connect, you can't remember what they said, you don't even care about what they said. That is the most common situation in the real world. Not the stumbling, nervous, oh my God, I'm getting up in front of a crowd, that kind of person that we often think of in Toastmasters, because that's the kind of person that we're always trying to help, first and foremost. But the person who's been through all of that and still, for some reason, is not effective. So the skill and technique part do not help. That's not the bit you need to focus on. Once you have your confidence, it's all about something else, and it's this. Cate Blanchett is an Academy Award-winning actress. Why? Why?
Because she's good.
Because she is talented. Yeah. Why? What is it specifically about her that allows her to be an Academy Award-winning actress?